This is the K95.3 Sports Show podcast, brought to you by the Fan Zone in Wilmer's Candy Mall.
Welcome to the K95.3 Sports Show podcast. My name is Beau. As usual, if you like what you hear, please hit the thumbs up on here. Also hit the subscribe button to make sure you hear future episodes that come out each Wednesday morning. I'd like to thank the Fan Zone for sponsoring the podcast. We appreciate you guys doing that, getting the Candy Mall today. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter, K95.3 Sports Show. That's at K95.3 Sports Show. I'm on there during the games throughout the week, commenting, posting stuff. That way we can kind of go back and forth a little bit throughout the week. Otherwise it gets kind of boring on Twitter. So come have a little fun with me, and let's talk a little sports one-on-one on Twitter. For the show today, I brought in Jeremy Goulet from the front office. How's it going, Jeremy?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Doing good, man. I'm doing good. We're gonna do just a quick little blurb on the Twins and on the Vikings. Otherwise, I know a lot of you have probably tuned in to listen to the season review with Marc and Ryan from the Stingers for their 10th season of Stinger baseball. That'll be coming up here in just a little bit. But please, if you're a Twins or Vikings fan, stick around and listen to our thoughts on the last week of Vikings and Twins baseball. So we'll kind of just jump into that right away. Twins-wise, a down week for them because of who they played. You know, from last Tuesday when we recorded, the Twins ended up going 3-2. Last week they went 3-3 if you count the loss to Chicago on Monday, and obviously we lost the series to Chicago, which we really shouldn't probably, and then we still lost one to Detroit also. I think this is kind of goes under the umbrella of is that yes, these guys should be easy pushover teams, but they're divisional teams.
Yep.
And you never know. How many times have the Vikings, a solid Vikings team, gone into Chicago to play the Bears and got trounced out of there?
Yep. It's just what you said. It can happen. I mean, 500 record. I mean, it was a 3-3. Yes, there were teams that we probably should have beaten. It's going to happen. You can't win them all. You just can't. And I'd rather lose, I guess, to somewhere in here than where the games actually count in the playoffs or something, down the road. So
yeah. So and then of course Cleveland, even though we did not that good against those teams, Cleveland kind of stunk it up. They got swept by the Mets, and then they ended up losing their last game against Kansas City. So even though we only went 3-2 since our last show, we maintained.
We maintained.
We maintained and actually extended our division lead now to 3.5 games as of Tuesday afternoon. So, even Cleveland can struggle with teams that aren't that. New York Mets 5-15 record. You know what I mean? It's they lost to Kansas City, who's barely better than the Tigers, but then we beat. We lost the White Sox, who are actually way better than the Royals. So it's like the ebbs and flows of the season, and that's what I think I've stressed to everybody since we had the 11.5, 12.5, 13.5 game lead in the division, is that it's a marathon.
Absolutely.
And as long as by the end of the season we've got a game lead on Cleveland, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what happens in between here and there. As long as last day of the season, we got at least a 1-game lead for the division. And
I think it's important to it's good for these teams where that because a part of this that could happen too is that you might have the Indians or the Twins that went into these series thinking like looking ahead at the next games or the next series thinking I should be able to just walk through these. It's one more proof. Be humble, and you got to stay in the moment at who you're playing, because any team can just come out of nowhere.
You got to play the game.
So, and that's just it. I think that's a good reminder, especially as the season's winding down and we're getting into heading into the fall and whatnot. That you guys got to keep your head about you.
Yep. And so for this week now, we've got Chicago, Detroit again. And Cleveland's got Detroit to start off the week and Tampa Bay. So they've got, and then they come back with Chicago after that. So, I mean, they have Tampa Bay coming up, so they've got a little tougher schedule. But once again, we'll see what happens. That's why they play the games. You don't know until it happens. The only other thing I'm going to mention about the Twins that's making me a little worrisome is Berríos. I mean, this is way too many starts in a row that he has not been good. Let's invent an injury for him and put him on the IL for 10 days and let him rest.
Yep.
And maybe he will only miss even just one start. Miss one start and then push one start back like a day, and that's all he should have to miss. But let's just give him some rest and see if that straightens it out. If that doesn't end up straightening it out, then we can look at okay, maybe there is something more. But that's my thought on Berríos.
Yeah, I don't think a rest at this point would be so bad. Like you said, the next series that we've got coming up here, I think our pitching staff can probably get through that. Maybe even give that Devin Smelter another shot. I mean, the shorter innings that he's pitched, he hasn't looked bad.
Yep.
Just piece something together and kind of see where you go from there. Because now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it isn't this next series we've got coming up, but the week after that. Then we end up we have a stand against the Indians, don't we?
Yeah. So
like
if they were going to put him on, on the IL, they should have probably done it right when we hit the Chicago-Detroit group if they were smart.
How far can they retroactive that?
Yeah, they could retroactive to his last start.
Okay.
So that was that loss to Detroit, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
So he would go back 2 games or 3 days.
3 days, okay.
So then it'd be 4, 5, 6,
still be a
7,
week off.
8, 9, 10. We could have him back by the Boston one because after Chicago, Detroit, we've got Boston, Cleveland, Washington.
Jeez.
Cleveland. But then we go back to Chicago, Kansas City, Detroit, Kansas City.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, if they were smart, they'd do that, but maybe they're just hoping he pitches out of it. But I mean, gosh, these last multiple starts have just been ugly.
Yeah, and how many times have we talked about that with like pitching kickers in the NFL? Once they've got something in their head, if there's something that's psychological with them going on, it's a very hard thing to break. And it's just like they said, sometimes you just gotta stop the cycle, let them regroup, get their head back about them, and then go forward from there.
Yep. So we'll have to see what they end up doing if they didn't do anything at all with Berríos, but I'm guessing they're not. But let's go ahead and jump into the Vikings game. We will be doing our Viking preview next week on our next week's show, so definitely tune into that if you're a Viking fan. Just touching base on the third preseason, we'll just talk a little bit because it's the preseason. I don't put a lot of stock into anything in the preseason. My favorite example is how I think the Lions went undefeated in their preseason when the season they went 0-16, and vice versa with the Patriots. They went 0-4 and they had their Super Bowl winning championship. Put in what you want. It's everybody's so vanilla anyways. Nobody wants to give away anything.
That's people just kind of seeing what kind of heart I think they've got on their team. That's about the most of it.
Exactly.
Who wants it the most?
And even the Cardinals have said that what they're doing in the preseason is not what they're going to do in the regular season because they want to keep it a secret with Kyler Murray and stuff like that. So either way, it was still a little disappointing seeing Kirk Cousins going 3 for 13 for only 35 yards. We had that great run by Dalvin Cook. He's ready. No complaints about Dalvin Cook. I've never had any complaints about Dalvin Cook. But, yeah, he just seems to be, while we didn't, Thielen didn't play. I can't remember why they said that, why he didn't play.
I didn't catch it.
I don't know if they just wanted to just not play him, I guess, because he's Adam Thielen. I don't know. But, so we had one of our top wide receivers out, so that probably hurt a little bit.
Diggs looked sharp.
Yeah, no, Diggs looked good. Cousins, and then Cousins was just kind of off. I mean, his throws were off. He overthrew Diggs by about 5 yards. BB dropped a first down that was right in his hands. I mean, it was very Laquan Treadwell-esque drop. And so, in the offensive line, too, there's that one play where it looked like they're going to set up a screen and basically the entire left side of the line just let them run around them. And that happens from play to play.
Yep, that one confused me too because I just was like, did our line just fold or what happened here? Because it was just all of a sudden there was nobody there and then it was just boom. And it was like, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, otherwise the defense, it overall looks solid.
Yep.
Let's see, I'm trying to think of anything specific on that side. Rhodes looked bad to start too.
I thought Rhodes kind of did to myself. He had I know for sure he had
deep.
one, but yeah, I know for sure he had that one deep one where
then he got
and the announcers were even just like, well, how did he get behind him? Like, and yeah, he just kind of was doing this number, and
then there was a little like 5-7 yard throw that he got deked out on right away, and he missed the tackle. But on the plus side, J-Ron Curse looked like an animal.
Oh yeah,
I mean, he has really stepped up. I really liked him last year when they would do the big defense where they'd have still Harris and Harrison Smith in the back, but then they would have Curse up by the line, kind of playing the slot wide receiver in those 4 wide receiver sets. I liked that because Curse did really well with that last year, and seems like he's kind of picking up where that left off last year.
I was happy to see Barr's decision to stay with us and not go to the Jets, and he led the team in tackles on the day for 5 with 1 assist. That was nice to see. And, there's some stuff that even, like you said, you kind of have to put...
Griffin looks better.
Griffin definitely looked better, yes.
You can tell that off-season to just get his mind right and just get everything at home situated. It definitely made a huge difference for him.
Absolutely. And I think it was... I'm trying to remember if that was it Henderson? Or Kendricks, maybe. That where they had Kyler Murray, he rolled out to the left. It looked like a fake. It looked like he handed off to, I think it was Edmonds, and everybody kind of went there. And then all of a sudden, I think it was Kendrick. All of a sudden, just swarmed Kyler Murray up there, and I was like, if somebody didn't fall for it, great.
Yep.
So yeah, I think they look good. Dalvin Cook, obviously, without I love that guy. I hope he can stay healthy.
Yep.
He's so fast. And he's just a good, I think, if he can stay healthy, I think we'll see big things out of him. I also liked the guy that they're looking at for, I believe they're hoping he'd be their third back, that Michael Boone. I thought he looked pretty good.
Yeah. Boone has been solid too.
He's a very forward runner, and I like to see that. I don't like, it just...
We might be carrying 4 running backs because of the special teams, because he does... Because I don't know if they're going to get rid of Amir Abdullah. I mean, he's looked okay too.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to, but... or maybe they've just been showcasing Boone's for a possible trade.
Yeah, that could be too.
But I don't know. But yeah, like I said, I don't even sit and watch the whole preseason games myself, and I'm a diehard.
Yeah, and I don't intently. It's just I kind of like to see though too, to be like, if that guy, I like to, for me it's more of like I said, I like to see kind of how much heart some of these guys got.
Yeah,
because that makes the world different to me. I like if they don't do great, but they're out there and they're just flying around. It's like, hey, they might be somebody, case in point, too, with our backup at QB, I thought both of them looked just fine. I mean, God forbid, hopefully, obviously, he stays healthy. But, I mean, Slaughter looked very good. I still thought that he should have had 2 TD passes on the day. That one in the corner, I thought he came down, but apparently there wasn't. So, But I know Mannion had a couple of nice deeper passes, too, to Diggs and over. Yep. So, it's for me, I'm that kind of guy. I like to know that we have somewhat competent backups too, just because you just don't know. It's football. I mean, I look at case in point too with the Redskins. Alex Smith went down, and that was it.
Yep.
I mean, they didn't have that. They put all their eggs in one basket, and that was it.
Yep. So, no, I agree. So, every player has their off games. Let's just hope Kirk just had an off game. That's what happens.
It's just like you said, the chemistry. It's still preseason. You're still working chemistry. What I did see from him when he connected a couple times with Diggs, they were right together. I mean, it was like, zoop, So I mean, and I think it's some of those, like I said, the tip balls and stuff like that. Sometimes that can be just as much of a fluke as anything.
Oh yeah, because you see some replays where the ball's coming through the D line and it just misses their hand by like an inch, and you're like, an inch closer. So that's what happens. That's literally the difference sometimes.
And then sometimes you can see it too. It takes nothing for a ball. Like all it has to do is touch a glove, and it completely changes the trajectory. It's just the ball is like dead.
Yep, exactly. So like I said, tune in to our to the podcast next week. We'll go more in depth with the Vikings and just go for this the whole season preview as a whole. So I think that's kind of where I'm going to wrap it up. I've gone a little longer than I wanted to already with the Stinger thing coming up. So thank you, Jeremy, for jumping in here quickly and doing this with me.
Absolutely.
And, we will jump into the Stinger season review here, which is brought to you by Anytime Fitness in Wilmer, Marshall, and Litchfield. So here's Marc and Ryan with the Stingers on their season review of their 10th Stinger season. All right, and we're here now with Marc and Ryan, owners of the Wilmer Stingers. First off, thank you guys for coming in today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Beau. Looking forward to it.
Yes. This was, first off, I would like to thank you guys for working with myself and the podcast, doing the Stinger Spotlight this year. All the guys that came in were great, very friendly. It was fun interviewing the guys this season and just helping the Stinger fans get to know the players better. So I wanted to start off by thanking you guys for that.
Yeah, no, it was great. I know the players enjoyed it, and kind of a fun way to introduce them into the community and get to know the guys a little bit better.
Yeah, and it gives them dealing with media a little bit more too. I mean, I'm sure they deal with it a little bit in college maybe, but just dealing with media again.
Right, just like the Northwoods League, we're trying to prepare them for minor league baseball. Well, I mean, here's another opportunity to prepare yourself for the media that potentially comes down the road as you get higher in the ranks. You're more likely to do more interviews and podcasts along the way.
Yeah. So awesome. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate that. But 10th season, Stingers baseball is done.
Right, how about that? It's all wrapped up. We've been talking about the 10th year, and it really wasn't the 10th year until it's over. I mean, we were celebrating the 10th year during the 10th year, so we were debating on that, and whether is it really the 9th year or is it the 10th year.
I thought about that too.
And so, but you can't celebrate the 10th year when you're in your 11th year. So the timing's kind of goofy, but yeah, here we are now. The 10 years are complete, and hard to believe, but the summer has flown by, and now we're getting ready for school again, and the summer's over.
Yep. Yeah. No. It was a blast. So what are your overall thoughts on the season? Any favorite memory or something specific that sticks in your mind from you guys? What?
Yeah, I guess my favorite memory is Game 2 of the first round of the playoffs, and we beat St. Cloud at home. And I tell you, I can't remember a better atmosphere at that ballpark than that game. It was a close game. Came down to the top of the ninth. The St. Cloud had runners on to tie the game, and we got the strikeout to end the game. And boy, the crowd was into it. Great fan, great attendance that night for a playoff game, and just electric atmosphere. I was smiling from ear to ear just watching the fans enjoy that last game and getting into it, and sponsors fist pumping, and season ticket holders really enjoyed it. And so it was a good way to. Even though we didn't end the season at home, end the home season with that playoff victory, thanking fans as they left the ballpark, pretty special to end that 10th season at home like that,
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, it was, like I said, I made several games, obviously, and it was a fun season to be a part of. I would say if not the best, the coolest story of the season, getting into the players. One of the coolest stories of the season, I think, was Daniel Walsh from Sacramento City, which was one of the first Stinger spotlights. If I recall, he came up here on a temporary contract, and he basically played himself into a permanent roster spot. In fact, in the 56 games he played, he ended up batting .282, 31 RBIs, crazy team-leading 51 walks. Is it common for a temp player like that to end up staying the whole season?
Yeah, it's from a position standpoint, it's tough because when you're a temp position player, you're considered one of the extra beyond the 14 full contract guys.
Okay.
Now, as a pitcher, your odds are way better to stay because there's injuries and guys getting drafted, and you have, you need 16 pitchers. So the only other guy that I think of off the top of my head, I'm sure there's been a few, is we had Danny Pardo was a position player who kind of earned himself that role 3 years ago. And then Walsh. And quite honestly, we didn't know much about Walsh. He had played at Sac City where Beau Henning was the coach just a year ago. And so he said Walsh is a good shortstop, second baseman. We found out he was a really good second baseman and probably not a shortstop. But offensively, you never know. You start off in June and he's hot and he's leading the league in hitting, and you start to wonder: is he catching lightning in the bottle? Is he having success early? And will he, at some point, just become an average player. But then you looked at his at-bats and the quality at-bats and the walks and how he battled off a ton of pitches, and you're like, this guy's got to stay because he's going to end up hitting 280 to 300 by the end of the season just because of his quality of at-bats.
Yeah.
But we have seen guys that'll come in on a temp contract, hit 320, and then at the end of the year, if they were to stick around, you look and go, oh, they hit 220 by the end of the summer, and they got tired and they wore out. Not for Walsh. I mean, he was one of our main guys.
Yeah. No, I thought that was a great, and so you kind of alluded to some of it. What explain the different type of contract signings? What are the options?
Yeah,
that
so
you give the players?
you got 30 full-time players.
Okay.
16 pitchers, 14 position players to make up the 30. Then the Northwoods League allows you to sign 10 temporary players beyond that. So at any given time, you could have 40 guys under contract. And as a temp contract, it's a minimum of 10 days and a maximum of the entire month of May and June. By July 1, you have to make them a full or you have to waive them, which then they're eligible to play for another team in the league. What we typically have done is sign 9 temp players. We never sign a 10th because we need that spot as an emergency. So if we were to sign 9 temp players and a catcher gets hurt before the season opener, we can go get a catcher, let's say, in an important position like that and not have all 10 spots filled up. So we typically will sign 8 or 9 temp players.
Okay.
And I would say out of the 8 or 9 temp players that we had this summer, John Bezlicek and Walsh and at one point Zegan and Davinsky we probably promoted just about every temp player other than maybe 1 or 2 to the full contract. And so it gives you a little bit more depth as well, for the duration of the summer.
Right. If you follow college baseball, obviously the College World Series is at the end of June, and so we start the Tuesday after Memorial Day. So a lot of times, guys are still playing in their regionals or they have school, and so we need a roster full of guys on that first day. And so the temp players bridge that gap between the time our season starts to the time when some of the full-time guys are able to get here that might be playing in the regional or super regional in the NCAA tournament. Nice.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered what that how that works, and I'm going to kind of retouch into that here a little bit because the other day or a couple weeks ago towards the end of the season, as usually guys recall, my son was an honorary bat boy, and we were down in the dugout, and the person who was kind of going around introducing us to everybody and having them sign the ball for Basil and stuff like that. She was like, "Oh, he's new." There seemed to have been quite a few newer players, and that was at the end of July. So were most of those pitchers because isn't there like kind of like a pitch count you kind of have?
Yeah.
Isn't there in a way? And how do those players come late in the season? How do you recruit those? You mentioned teams not keeping a player on a temporary contract and then releasing them. Are these guys you're picking up from other teams that have been released?
Yeah, actually, that's an option. We didn't pick any of those guys up because typically the guys that that we picked up late in the year are pitchers. There were 2 position players that we picked up. We picked up Brendan McKenzie, who was for Cal Poly, and we picked up Riley Johnson, who was at Augustana. They replaced 2 guys that were gone because of injuries, position-wise. And then for pitchers, we did have a couple that reached their inning limits. A couple of them, Casey Cobb, actually, we found out had a loose bone chip in his elbow. Oh. So he went home halfway through the season. It was a kid from Alabama that we thought was going to be pretty good for us, but ended up getting hurt. So then you got to get kind of creative, and you reach back out to your college coaches and say, okay, do you have a pitcher that can join us for the second half of the season? The nice part about it, a little bit of the selling point, is that we had already won the first half playoff spot. So now when you're out looking for a pitcher, you can at least tell the kid that he's here for the duration to the end of the summer and that you're also going to need him for the playoffs. And so if the kid's going to make a point of coming up to the Northwoods League to have won the first half, that makes it a little more fun that they can be a part of a postseason action. And so we try to recruit those guys, mid-July. As soon as we start losing players, it's you're replacing those guys. And there's other summer leagues. There's a league in St. Louis that wraps up the end of July. And so we actually ended up getting 3 guys from league when that league was wrapped up, of pitchers who hadn't thrown to their max in terms of inning limits. And so we were able to bring those guys in.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was wondering that because she was pointing out to several people. Oh, everyone, this is the newest person. This is the newer person. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know.
There was probably 6 to 8 of them.
It did.
Not a third, but close to about a third of the team by the end of the summer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. Well, I mentioned Walsh earlier, but some other bats. If we're going to stay on the hitting side first here, that stood out. Once again, these are guys I actually had on the Stinger Spotlight. So those that are listening, if you haven't heard some of the Stinger Spotlights, go back through the videos earlier this year and check out the spotlights for these players. But Justin King and Sam Byer were huge for you guys offensively. I mean, they led the team with 7 home runs. I think what Byer have? Was it Byer that had like 2 or 3 in one game?
Yeah, 3 in Rochester.
Yeah. So 3 out of those 7 came in one game, which is just amazing. No matter what level you do that at. Also Byer easily led the team in stolen bases with 41. I mean, the next closest person was 13.
Right.
And him and I talked about that during that because I told him when I saw him, I was like, you don't look like a fast guy.
Yeah, he's a big kid.
He's fast, but there's an art to stealing bags, and I was
going to say he's reading the pitchers well,
and he knows how to steal bags, and so there's guys that are probably way faster than him that don't have the knack for stealing bases. So, he's obviously very good at it, and the Northwoods League record I think is 50. And so he was pretty close to, breaking that. So
because like I said, we talked about it, and he said that in Springfield and Augustana that Springfield for his high school, Augustana for his college, that they were a lot of running on their team, that they stole a lot of bases, and that's what the coaching staff really pushed. So that's probably why he was so honed in on that. Sure. I do have to give him a little crap though, because when we were in here, I told him, you won a championship with Springfield, you won a championship with Augustana. I told him he had to bring a championship this year, so he failed me.
Right. I didn't realize that about his high school, but
close.
Yeah. So state championship with Springfield and won with Augustana.
Won the Division II national championship 2 years ago. Yeah.
So I'm a little disappointed in Sam. Come on, Sam.
Exactly.
You didn't come through on your end. But let's go ahead and head over to the pitching side. Your top starting pitcher, without a doubt, was Polo Portela from Cumberland in Tennessee. He started 10 games with you guys, went 8-0, crazy 1.23 ERA. I was kind of looking through. The last pitcher to have really those kind of numbers was Portela in 2017. Has he been arguably one of the best starters you guys have had on the team for the last 10 years?
Well, with that kind of consistency, I mean, there wasn't, you're almost kind of waiting for him to have a bad outing, and it never happened. And so he actually's got to try out with the Brewers today to sign as a free agent potentially.
I was just going to ask if he might get drafted.
He's a senior sign, and so this is an opportunity where guys are available. Last year, Nick Mears was with us, signed a free agent deal with the Pirates. He just got promoted to the AA club with the Pirates in the last week. And so Portela is hoping to sign with an affiliated team. He does have independent ball as an option, but he'd like to sign with a major league team if he could. So, but I said the same thing. I was talking to a few of the scouts. I said, arguably, I don't know if this guy's given up. I don't know if he had 1 or 2 earned runs he gave up this year and 1 or 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. He put together 2 really good years.
Yeah, he's arguably the best pitcher that the Stingers have ever had.
Yeah.
Now he doesn't have the velocity like Jacob Barnes or Nick Mears that are touching 94, 95. Augie Silk we had this year that signed during the year. I mean, he was hitting 94, 95 from the left-hand side. So it doesn't wow the radar gun, which all the scouts want. And, everybody's about the velocity. But, I mean, at the end of the day, what's the goal as a pitcher? Get guys out. And no one has done that more consistently, in the Stingers organization in 10 years than Polo. So I hope he gets a chance because the guy's a heck of a pitcher. And he should have a chance. He should be a professional baseball player.
Like you said, I was amazed. Like I said, I'd follow him. He's one of the earlier Stinger spotlights too. And every time on Twitter when he started, and just another shutout, another great game, and the playoff game against St. Cloud, just domination there too. And he has to. I mean, it'd be a crime against baseball if he doesn't get on some single A team.
Well, it's interesting. I talked to the Philly scout, Mark Wilson, who used to be with the Twins, and he said, we have guys that are less talented than him right now in our system.
Yep.
But it's all about timing and availability as to one of these teams having the right spot open. Like, without a doubt, he could go in and be an impact guy in minor league baseball. Does he project to be in the big leagues? Well, who knows? I mean, you can't rule him out. I mean, but he doesn't have that flashiness to him. And so hopefully the timing works well that he can sign with one of these teams.
Yeah. Oh, well, hopefully look forward to seeing some kind of news on him and seeing that. So that was the starting pitching. Now we go to the relief pitching. The best relief pitcher you guys had this year was Brian Clonch. Once again, Stinger Spotlight. So make sure you guys check out his interview if you can. Those listening, over his 14 appearances, he had one start. And you thought the 1.23 ERA from Polo was crazy. He had a .77 ERA. And comparing what they did in their college to what they were doing with you guys, with the Northwoods Leagues and stuff and with Stingers, their numbers here were obviously better than what they were doing in college. So. My question is, does that have to do with the wooden bat aspect? What players aren't used to, you're not getting the speed off of the metal bats, and they're not hitting harder and faster, because you would think it would be almost harder to pitch in the Northwood Leagues just because each team is in a way kind of an all-star-ish type team. Do you think it's the wooden bats, or what do you think?
You see it both ways. You see some guys come in that have an unbelievable ERA in college baseball, and then they might struggle and have a 4 or 5 ERA here. I know Clonch, I was excited to see him come back because he had the best ERA on his team at North Alabama, which was like a 3. And then he had under a 1 ERA here. So he did start a little bit, and it's all how they're used. Clonch is a left-on-left kind of a specialist, and he's a strike thrower. And guys that are strike throwers in the Northwoods Leagues tend to have success. Believe it or not, these guys spend most of the season still adjusting to that wood bat. And, sometimes they do better in the summer because, let's face it, they don't have classes. They get to go play baseball, and they're playing a little looser, and they tend to have more success. And even from a hitting standpoint, we've had guys from Florida Gulf Coast Michael Suki probably didn't hit 280 at Florida Gulf Coast, and he hit 320 here. And so I think the talent-wise, college baseball in here is very similar. I'm sure there's some conferences that, if you're in the SEC and you're playing some of the top, Vanderbilt, a couple times during the year, that competition is a little stiffer than, some of the other teams. But it's interesting. Some guys just thrive during the summer.
Yeah. No, I've always kind of wondered that, how much the wooden bats aspect affected or changed people.
I think it's big. Yeah, I mean, your guys with longer swings struggle, with wood versus aluminum. We've seen it many times where guys had a bunch of home runs in college and aluminum bat, and they get here and we're like, geez, this got to figure it out because he's not doing anything. So it's an adjustment for sure. Adjustment for the pitchers too. So, but you see it more so, with the position players and struggling to kind of transition from aluminum to wood.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah, so last year on our season review, we talked about playoff format. Again, the playoff format changed before this year,
right?
Correct, and it was, correct me if I'm wrong though, it's the first round, it's best out of 3, and then it's best out of 1, best out of 1. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so. I kind of mentioned, I talked about the negative sides of the 1-game playoff last year, and once again, you guys took 2 out. You guys beat St. Cloud. Can't remember the St. Cloud one. Did you guys beat them the first game? Yeah, you beat them
Yep.
And but once again this year we got bounced out on the single playoff. Right. It's got to get a little aggravating for you guys a little bit, right? I mean,
it's just I don't know what the solution is. I mean, I talked to somebody this morning. I'm like, ideally, I think you'd play a best of 3, a best of 3, and a best of 3. It'd take 9 days potentially. And we don't have the time.
Yeah, it's a time.
So it is frustrating to come down to a single elimination game. Last year, if the roles were reversed, we would have lost in the same spot. We'd have beat St. Cloud in the single elimination. We'd have lost to Eau Claire in the single elimination, if that would have been the case. So we didn't really. It's so tough with the size of the league to travel for a championship series and to be playing in Wilmer and to go to Traverse City, Michigan for a best of 3.
Yeah, you want to do it. You want to be fair.
And so it's just
it makes sense.
The travel is almost is crazy. I mean, the league at one point was buying insurance policy on a flight from Bismarck to Battle Creek or Kalamazoo, Michigan, because it wasn't feasible to be able to go from Bismarck to those teams in Michigan within a day's time and play the game. So a different format change. I'm interested to see as a group in the Northwoods League what people's feedback is. I don't know if the league will hop around and switch the playoff format every year, but it'll be interesting to see what everybody's take is, because it's definitely was just kind of a flip-flop of what it had been in the past.
I mean, I like it. I mean, you got to win a half. You got to win the first half or second half to get in, and then you have a series. That first round, and so I think you've got the better teams going to advance out of there 9 out of 10 times. Whereas in a one-gamer, you could have your top seed and then you got a 4 seed going in like they had in the past. And I mean, Madison won more games than anybody last year, and they got beat in the first round, and that's not right. They weren't Madison was the better team, but in a one-game playoff, anything can happen. So at least you have that first series that you'll have the better team advance, and then hey, you got 2 games to win it all. So
I just realized how it changed up again this year, so I wanted to make sure to touch base on that a little bit again. But so into the season, you guys are, like you said, cleaning popcorn machines when you're walking in and making sure everything's nice and clean and already getting ready for next year. But what any plans already in the hopper for next season? Anything? I mean, is it too early to be asking you guys that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the time of year where
you guys got to sit down.
We start throwing around ideas, and then we catch each other and say, "Hey, we got to delay these conversations for like 2 or 3 weeks because you could very easily hop right into the same mode." And so you almost have to force yourself just to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and realize that it's still August, and that these conversations can be had in September and October, in terms of preparation, because it's really. You go from an overwhelming kind of a wild and crazy summer, and then it all comes to a screeching halt, and 30 players go home. 30 host families are no longer having a player in their home, 25 part-time staff members, 8 interns, and so we go down to a very small staff again. And so it's kind of a seasonal change for us, and then you just kind of recharge the batteries and you get ready for another year.
Yeah. Decompress, regroup. Kind of that, just
exactly.
Yeah. The first thing that we always, for us this year in the off season, I think that one of the priorities right away is trying to secure the coaching staff back for next year. Beau Henning did an outstanding job, and Al Ava and Matt Caselli. Potentially we could have him back again. This would be Beau's 4th year. 3rd year as a manager, so we'll see how that goes, but that's the goal. Yeah.
Caselli also came in for the Stinger Spotlight, so he was my one coach this year. Sure. Another great guy. He was super nice. Yeah, he was very friendly. So that's awesome, guys. Like you said, 10 seasons in, many more to come. Many cool promotions to come, many hopefully championships to come eventually. We got to get over that hump. I'd say it's a Minnesota thing, but there's several teams in Minnesota, so it can't.
Right. Somebody else told me, they said, "How'd you guys do in the playoffs?" I said, "Well, we lost in the second round." Like, "Oh, it's a Minnesota thing." Yeah. There's other teams in our league in Minnesota.
Well, that's cool. I mean, it's been
you can't lose that excuse.
We like to throw this out there because it might not be forever, but hey, in the last 10 years, no other team has won more regular season games than the Stingers, and so in the Northwoods League, and so that's pretty special. Yep. And then for the last 2 years, been able to be in the top 4 in the Northwoods League in the playoffs. So we've been into the Final Four 2 years in a row. So we haven't made it to the championship, but you got to look back, and that's a pretty successful last couple of years here, and regular season for the last 10. But to be in the Final Four and have a chance to get to that championship game is pretty special when you play that many games and you got that many things you can't control in the playoff system that we've been in. And so hats off to the coaches and to the players that have competed these how many years, and Ryan putting together the team and along with the coaches, and we've done a fantastic job. So
that's I do recall that we had the best overall record since your guys' inception, and I've always talked to this as you guys know, I'm a diehard Viking fan, bleed purple, all that stuff. Similar thing, Vikings have like the best overall record in the NFL without a Super Bowl win.
Right.
So my question always is with people is, would you rather have a team that's always or more often than not in contention and in the conversation, or would you rather be like a Buccaneers fan and your franchise has been basically worthless for 90% of its existence, but you got that one championship,
Right?
Where would you rather go? Where would you?
That's a great question. Of course, we're biased. I mean, we've always said that our goal is to play competitive baseball, play good defense, throw strikes, and provide a good product. Once you get to the postseason, no different than the NFL. You got to be healthy. You got to have the mojo. You got to get some breaks. I mean, so many things that are out of your control. But for the regular season, from a fan standpoint, let's go watch, good athletes perform. And, for us, that's kind of been the case. Our fans have seen a lot of good baseball in 10 years. They haven't seen great postseason results, but during the regular season, we've had a lot of good baseball. I was just thinking, I hadn't thought of this till now. The first 2 years of the franchise, we didn't make the playoffs, but we made the playoffs the third year. So in the last 8 years, we made the playoffs 7 of the last 8 years from that standpoint, from the third season on, which is crazy. But at least you're giving us, you get a chance to get to that next level. So there's a positive for the Vikings, You know
what? I'm a Vikings fan as well, and it's more fun to have your team, in the conversation and not, being horrible. I mean, my goodness, it's fun to have them at least in the conversation, like you said. I mean, last year where they were 8-7-1, still in the conversation, but that was a down year. While we were still 500, was a lot of teams in the NFL can't say that.
We went into the year expecting something, unfortunately, to work. But you're some of the fans for teams, you just already know it's over.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just like, we'll go 4-12.
We're shooting for 5 years from now.
Yeah.
At least we're not Lions fans. My goodness, that would be. You're telling me.
Great example.
Right.
Great example of they're just always bad and just they know they're coming into the season. It's meh, whatever. We're not expecting anything. But as Viking fans, as Stinger fans, you guys have now showed 7 of the last 8 seasons that barring some craziness, that you guys are being able to put on competitive teams every single year. And I think that's what, once again, that the atmosphere at the games and the product on the field is what draws the fans in. So, kudos to you guys on both aspects, on the fun aspects of the in-game stuff that you guys do and everything, and great job with putting together the teams to have a competitive team, to have people wanting to come in and watch a winning team play baseball. So
thank you.
So thank you guys for coming in and doing this. Hopefully we can do the whole Stinger Spotlight thing again next year. I think it was a fun time, but get some rest over here these next couple weeks, guys. Recharge and jump back on the horse and rock and roll for the 11th season coming up next year.
Good.
So
thanks,
guys.
Beau.
All right,
thanks for
you.
joining.
Appreciate it.
All right, I'd just like to thank Marc and Ryan for coming in one more time for doing the season review. We appreciate them helping out the podcast, and we appreciate being able to get you guys more information about the Stingers. So until next year with the Stinger Spotlight, we'll come back hopefully next year and we'll go from there. But reminder that we are doing a Viking season preview on next week's episode, so make sure you check that out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.